the one big thing on Raw this week was pretty good. Once again, another great segment on Raw this week.
Well, yeah, and again, it's such a vast difference when the other program, they just won't stop with it. Just everything's crazy. And Raw, now they've set it up where we were kind of convinced, oh God, this is so boring. And then they threw a show in that jazzed everybody up. Holy shit. And then they go back to, but now it's like, as long as there is one or two major things that goes on in the program, everybody seems happy and you remember what it is. And they were in Boston at the TD Garden, not the classic garden, but that new one, the Infidels. And again, I don't know what they did there, but it looked like a big ass crowd to me. But everybody during the walk-ins, this guy's going to be here and this girl's going to be here and here comes so-and-so. And then they showed, and after we were off the air at Saturday night's main event, Owens pile driving Cody. So they did it off the air on Saturday night so that they can build this around it. And it's new news that it worked pretty seamlessly, didn't it?
It worked great. And, the best way to start these shows, when CM Punk's music hits, it's not just because I'm a fan of his, but you kind of know it's going to be a pretty good angle. It's going to be a smart angle.
Yes. The actor studio level is going up a notch here. We're not dealing with Ted Mack's amateur hour anymore.
And they started off again with the hottest angle. Well, I shouldn't say that. They've done a couple big ones lately, but they started off with a real hot angle.
Like Mussolini! Coming to Netflix! That doesn't rhyme, though, does it?
Doesn't sound good either.
Oh, I'm sick. I'm ill. You're making fun of the disabled here.
I'd say you're sick. You're really ill. You know what? We agree on something for once. I'd say you're ill.
All right. Anyway, he comes out. He gets the big ovation, the CM Punk chants. And he says, well, some people might get mad if you chant my name. And then he makes fun of a fan wearing a New York shirt in Boston. But again, the thing about Punk is this doesn't sound like a bunch of pre-planned, memorized material, scripted remarks. He flows with it. He feeds off what's going on around him to weave in and out of it where it's more natural. And that's why he's a good promo, storyteller, communicator, verbalizer, whatever the case. But he was in a bad mood, he said, because of Seth. And, the history they've got, I said I wasn't thinking about him, but over the last few weeks I have been, and it's only a matter of time before I have to face Seth in the ring. We got to get this thing behind us. So, again, every time that I talk to you people, I know that stupid music is going to hit, and out he's going to come, dressed like Liberace. Not there's anything wrong with that.
He didn't say not that there's anything wrong with it. Then he had to defend his fandom of Liberace.
Well, yeah, that's, he said, hey, I'm a fan of Liberace, but just because you wear Elton John sunglasses doesn't make you Elton John. And putting on a pair of wrestling boots doesn't make you CM Punk. But he's trying to goad Seth into coming out. And, and he referred to Seth as you're my failure because, when you wanted me to teach you to wrestle, I should have. But now if you still want me to give you a lesson for free, if you want to interrupt me, do you think you're tougher than Drew McIntyre was? There won't be enough staples to put you back together again. Still no Seth, right? So finally he told the fans, why don't you chant for him? And then all of a sudden you hear Seth on the PA from the stands. He's up in the stands in the spotlight. And Seth's deal is, hey, I see you now the way the fans see you from up here getting this viewpoint. And now even from way up here, you're still an asshole. And then Punk said, well, you belong in the audience with the fans, which was a good one. And then, but he should have directed that at a bunch of people he used to work with. And then Seth said, hey, I stayed around and carried the WWE when you left, and I've got more WrestleMania main events than you ever will. That's what's important. And Punk said, fuck it, he hopped the rail. And they meet each other in the aisleway, and they're having a hockey fight. And here come the agents and the referees, and they do the pull apart, and they're fighting all over the place. And they pull them apart, and they break loose again. And Punk's facials were fucking insane. He was, oh, hell yeah. He was over the top, and the people are chanting, let them fight. Let them fight. And then they both back up and spin away from their restrainers and run to the back of ringside and fight again. And they're being pulled apart in this sea of people in this crowded building. And that was just swell. You know, that's pretty much what the business of the whole show was. And then I'll let you comment, but they went to the back after the break, and there's Pierce with Seth, and Seth is saying, I want to fight CM Punk. They're actually using terminology that people would use if this was an actual thing that they were doing. And do your job. Get me the match. And then Seth saw Drew McIntyre. And now they're doing a whole thing with Seth and Drew, where Drew said, hey, Seth, you know, you told me one time about Roman. You said, I'll just get over it. Well, you aren't over it. And Drew told him that, you know, Jimmy and Sammy or Jay or whoever, they all need to go. And Seth said, well, they're my friends and you're not. So I got to go do something you couldn't do in CM Punk. So now the two tweeny guys on the different brands still don't like each other. This is fucking great. They can make a match anywhere. It's like one of those Venn diagrams or something.
Well, this is great, and they can make a match anywhere, and they did. What do you think about the fact this match they've been teasing for a while? They're finally interacting, Rollins and Punk, and it's going to be on Netflix.
Yeah, they are hot-shotting at 9 o'clock, the top of the 9 o'clock hour. They announced with Adam Pearce that on the January 6th Raw debut on Netflix, it'll be Punk versus Rollins. So now they've got that, which is Mania or Rumble worthy. They've got the return of Cena. They got all this other stuff going on. You know, they're going to be farting through silk. But they're for the money Netflix is giving them, they better be goddamn serious about this thing, though, hadn't they?
I think they're pretty serious. And that was the best thing on Raw by far.
Yeah, and otherwise, you know, Braun Breaker and Ludwig Kaiser, Braun did not have a good night. And Ludwig,
why do you say that? What does that mean?
Well, Ludwig worked his ass off, and he's the veteran. He was calling his thing, but Braun's in a babyface position there with Kaiser and for the Intercontinental title. And they apparently were going to have a little experiment and see if Braun could sell like a babyface, which they did the wrong kind of selling. He was trying to sell his arm, and at one point he was selling his bad arm by tucking it into his side like it was goddamn glued to him. And Braun doesn't need to sell a particular body part like the arm like this, and he wasn't very effective at it. I think Braun needs to sell impactful shit. Running into a boot in the mush or a suplex or a goddamn big bump on the floor, sell the whole body. And you can get away with selling in a babyface fashion, but especially when Ludwig is compared to Braun, big around as my little finger, it didn't come together. They went through 2 breaks. They gave him a lot of fucking time. It was a bit long and not Braun's best, and they need to tweak, you know, how they have him sell. He has to show vulnerability, but he can't just do it like everybody else does it. And when he made the one-armed comeback, he was trying too hard to sell the arm by not using it, except then at one point, Joe Tessitore said he hasn't moved that left arm in minutes, and he immediately moved the arm. Because there's things you have to do with the arm. But he hit the Brakensteiner with one arm or whatever. But anyway, that was that. And then Cody and Owens package, just what we've talked about that they did. They had a wonderful girls match. Rhea's the number one contender for Liv Morgan, and Rhea called Dominic a chicken tender slut. And then they put the belts on the Vikings, which was kind of surprising, but they did it in a way. It was Finn and JD defending against the War Raiders now, or was it War Machine? War Machine's what they used to be.
On the Indies, yeah.
Then they made them the Viking Raiders. Then they changed to the War Raiders. Whatever the fuck. These guys are, I said when I first saw them in there, I managed them years ago at an indie show. They're fucking great, especially if they can move for their size. They had good shit. But they just cartooned them up under Vince. Maybe now this is an attempt to make them a little more serious. But they combined this with the deal going on with Priest and Finn, because Priest kept Finn from using a chair on him, and then the Vikings hit their finish 1, 2, 3. So it was still Priest that kind of caused the turn of the tide, but maybe the poor old Vikings have been brought into the 20th century. And that was Raw.
And that was Raw, and boy, was it. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more wrestling talk and wrestling news and wrestling questions.
We're stalling for the ratings on the AEW show is what we're doing.
Well, we'll be stalling more, or the stalling will end, and there'll be more wrestling talk right after this short commercial timeout.